But not everybody is pushing forward. Last night, Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal dropped out of the 2016 race for presidency, saying in his exit remarks, "It's just not my time." Joining me now is author of 2012 for 20-somethings, Salvador Lamastre V. Sal, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Governor Jindal finally dropped out of the race last night. In my opinion, long overdue for him. What did you think of his decision?
I thought it was the right decision. He didn't have the money, obviously. From some of my sources, I know a lot of the big donors in Louisiana were going to Ted Cruz in Texas and Rubio in Florida. So he wasn't getting the big money. He didn't have enough of a grassroots like Ted Cruz does or Ben Carson. So it was just time for him to go. He wasn't gaining traction. So I'm glad to narrow the field a little bit.
Right, and I feel like at this point, some of the candidates who are in the lower tier would almost do better to drop out so that they don't ruin their political chances in the future by staying long enough to become absurd. Now, 5 years ago, Jindal was hailed as being the up-and-coming politician. He was supposed to be the new face of the Republican Party, the young one, the one that related to millennials. But in this presidential race, he's been kind of lackluster. What happened?
I don't know what happened to him. We've had an interesting primary. We've had a lot of people enter the race, so I think he just got drowned out. I mean, you can say the same thing what you said about millennials with Rand Paul. I mean, he's gotten lost a lot. I mean, he had a good debate last time on Fox Business, but other than that, he's been drowned out as well. So I think Jindal just he couldn't get the enthusiasm behind him. He couldn't get the grassroots, and he just didn't have anything to make him stand out from this large group.
Do you think something that could differentiate between Rand Paul still being in the race and Jindal now dropping out would be the fact that Rand Paul has been on the main stage of the debates while Jindal has always been at the happy hour debate or the kiddie table, if you will? Do you think he would have gained more attention, a little more grassroots traction if he'd had the platform of being on the main stage?
You can make that argument for sure, but let's not forget that's where Carly Fiorina started, and she moved up because she had a good performance on that undercard debate the first time on Fox News. So I think it's all what you make of it. And he just, he wasn't as great or dynamic on stage as he could have been. And that hurt him.
Now, last night he said that he's not ready. Jindal said that he's not ready to endorse another candidate, but he will in the future. Who, in your opinion, do you think he'll endorse?
I think it'll be a Rubio or Cruz, actually. I think he'll stay with a Southern candidate. I don't see him with his views and his leadership in Louisiana really aligning with anyone else besides those two.
Will his endorsement have any impact on the race? Does he have enough influence for that?
Outside Louisiana, probably not, even though I don't think he has that much influence in Louisiana now either. So I don't know if that'll help him too much.
Right, and I've wondered if his exit will even have any influence on the race. He had such low poll numbers, so few people following him. It's not even really a question of who his followers will now vote for, who they'll now support. In my opinion, it kind of doesn't have any impact on the race. What do you think?
Exactly. It's going to have no impact. I mean, in some areas he was polling less than 0.5%. So it's not going to have an impact. The only impact we're going to see in voter swing is, we've seen Trump make a big gain this week, and that's from Carson's bad week last week. So Jindal's not going to have any influence on anyone's numbers by dropping out.
Sure. Now, endorsements are a political game sometimes. Critics would say that politicians only endorse other politicians in order to gain a position in their administration. Do you think that that's what Jindal's waiting to see, or do you think that he's going to be a little more objective in his endorsement?
I think that's what he's waiting for. I mean, we were talking about earlier is, why are these lower, polling number candidates still in the race? Is, of course, they're still trying to get their name out there as a position for vice president or in a cabinet position, perhaps, So like Marco Rubio, if he doesn't win, I mean, he's out of the Senate. So he needs, to win or become vice president or something. So it all, I think, matters, keeping your cards close to your hand and waiting to endorse, maybe later on and you see, someone who's going to break away and be the front runner.
Right, but I think that's a good point that you make for the lower tier candidates, not even someone like Rubio, because he obviously still is a front runner. He has as good a chance as anybody of winning. But candidates like Lindsey Graham or like Governor Jindal, they clearly want to move on from their position. Lindsey Graham out of the Senate, Jindal out of the governorship. They want an administration position, maybe even a cabinet level position, or else they're purely delusional for even staying in like Lindsey Graham and thinking that he could win the race. It has to be a political game at this point.
It does, exactly.
Now, what did you think of Jindal's other comments about how conservatives need to start leading better, especially in regards to the fight against ISIS?
I thought it was a good comment, and I know Jindal isn't a big fan of Trump, but he he made a good play for Trump there. I mean, and the new polls out, I mean, a majority of Americans favor taking a larger fight to ISIS. Some troops on the ground, and most don't support troops on the ground. Although a fun fact is 60% of the millennials do favor boots on the ground to fight ISIS, which is, I thought, is interesting. And also with millennials, there's been a 7-point increase in the Bush era doctrine, which is, attack first, ask questions later kind of. So I think that you don't get much more conservative in the Bush era doctrine when you talk about Trump. Trump's, he wants to go and take it to him and fight, and he doesn't want to bring the refugees in. So I think Trump is actually the most conservative out there right now, next to Ted Cruz, when it comes to the fight against ISIS.
And you think that he would fulfill what Bobby Jindal was talking about when he said to lead the world better, to lead our country better, and maybe even the fight against ISIS?